Hi, this is Mac from Mac's List. Before we start the show, I want to let you know about my new book, Land Your Dream Job Anywhere. I've been helping job seekers find meaningful, well-paying work since 2001, and now I put all my best advice into one easy-to-use guide. My book shows you how to make your resume stand out in a stack of applications, where you can find the hidden jobs that never get posted, and what you need to do to ace your next job interview. Get the first chapter now for free. Visit maxlist.org/anywhere. This is Find Your Dream Job, the podcast that helps you get hired, have the career you want, and make a difference in life. I'm Mac Pritchard, your host and publisher of Mac's List. I'm joined by my co-hosts, Ben Forstag, Becky Thomas, and Jessica Black. This week, we're talking about how to use your network to get informational interviews. You probably know you need to do informational interviews when job hunting, but you may struggle with finding people to ask. Our guest expert this week is Kate Gremillion. She says we all have people in our networks that can help us. The trick to finding them, says Kate, is understanding your networks and asking the right questions. She and I talk in the second half of the show. When you're ready to ask someone for an informational interview, you'll probably do so by email. The subject line you use can make the difference between a quick answer and no response at all. Ben has found a list of great subject lines for your informational interview requests, and he will tell us more about it shortly. You're ready to switch careers, and you know that recruiters turn to LinkedIn when looking for job candidates. How do you redo your LinkedIn profile to reflect your new interests without drawing the attention of your current employer? That's our question of the week. It comes from listener Stephen Waldron of Salem, Massachusetts. Becky offers her advice in a moment. As always, let's first check in with the Mac's List team. And our topic this week is how to find people in our networks for informational interviews. So, Becky, Jessica, Ben, how do you recommend people start to approach others about informational interviews?
Sure, I'll start. I think that a lot of times people sort of consider like the people that they want to talk to in a certain company or in a certain industry. And we actually just put a blog up on Mac's List a couple days ago that was about sort of unlikely folks to approach. And I think sometimes we don't approach people that are like already in our network, people who we may be close to but don't talk about careers with. And you never know like who is in someone else's network. So I honestly find that it's really helpful and sort of insightful to talk to people that are right around you about your career and sort of what you hope to do. And a lot of times those folks have other folks that they would sort of point you to and recommend that you talk to next. I've always sort of had a lot of success just growing that network organically. Like you talk to one person and they recommend two other people that you talk to and sort of grows from there. So that's one thing that I have found to be really helpful in my sort of career. So that's a thought.
Good suggestions. How about you, Jessica? What thoughts come to mind when you think about people that you could identify or reach out to for informational interviews?
Mine's kind of similar in that mine grows often, it's usually an organic process, whereas where it's just as we've talked about on this podcast, I'm very curious by nature, and I often just like to talk to people about what kind of jobs they have and learn more about what exactly it is people do that I interact with on a daily basis. Even if I'm not necessarily looking to go into that industry or career path, I still am just really curious. So sometimes it just happens where it's an accidental type of informational interview where I'm just gathering information. And then also with all of the sort of, I call them extracurricular activities that I'm involved in, it grows the network organically that way, that I'm able to talk to a lot of people that I wouldn't normally think to seek out.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the what. In fact, you mentioned that too, Becky. I think sometimes people get stuck about who to contact because they're not sure what they want to explore. And to your point, Jessica, if you're curious about a certain occupation, then it makes sense. Then I think it gets easier to identify the people who do that work, and then easier to ask because you know what you want to get out of that conversation.
It is, and it's when you don't know, it's nice to just start talking to people, and then you sometimes discover it by just that information gathering session that you may never have considered some sort of industry, or we'll say architecture, but you happen to talk to someone and you discover there's a really interesting facet of that industry that you didn't really realize was there, and that may be a perfect match for you.
Yeah, and when you have like that extracurricular connection with that person, like you're just that more connected, and it's that more exciting when you do have a professional connection. That just sort of really solidifies that network relationship too.
Absolutely,
So
and
I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I agree, and it's a lot easier. You don't have to do sort of that cold email, which is, I think, the scariest and most intimidating. I don't know about scary, but intimidating part of it.
It's just, I think it's much more effective when you have that personal connection already. Like when it's a cold email, you're just not going to get as many responses. So I think that's a great way to approach it.
Yeah. What about you, Ben?
My rule of thumb is like find the people who are doing what you want to be doing and talk to them. And I think a lot of people are afraid to do that because they think like they'll be seen as competition. But I found that professionals are usually very open to sharing their time and their thoughts, and rarely does this like I'm training my replacement mentality actually happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, my big go-to sources when I'm looking for people for informational interviews are LinkedIn and alumni databases. I'm a big fan of both. I'm always surprised by how rarely many people use LinkedIn and to sort either by a geographic area or a company that interests them. And I rarely run across people who are tapping into alumni databases. And most of us and our listeners have gone to college or a community college or a university, and there's a ready-made network of people who want to help.
Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of using LinkedIn as well, and it's a good way to, sort of explore new industries and see. You can use the search function and put in maybe you have a dream job in mind, and you can sort of search for that and look at what people are already doing and gather some information about what types of job descriptions are out there and then see who your connections are that you have in common.
Well, good. Well, those are great suggestions. I know we'll get some more from Kate when we talk to her later in the show. Before we have that interview, let's turn to you, Ben, because you're out there every week looking around the internet for our listeners, trying to find books, tools, and websites people can use in their job search and career. So what have you uncovered for us this week?
So this week I want to share a resource I found on one of my favorite job search sites, which is the Muse. And this has got a very long title. It is, here are the subject lines that'll get your networking emails opened every time.
Okay, so this is back to Becky's point about cold emails and getting people to actually respond.
Yeah, how to make them a little bit more effective. So,
That's important.
Yeah, the deciding factor for getting a professional to agree to meet with you is typically time. And that's not just true for the meeting itself, which could take 20 to 60 minutes, but also true when we're talking about initially getting that person's attention with an email. So it sounds silly, but today people are stretched pretty thin. And when a new email shows up in your inbox, we're often making very quick decisions about whether to open it now or wait until later. And I'm sure you all know what happens when an email gets put into the later category.
I'm guessing your research that you're about to cite is going to show that they go unanswered.
Yeah, they get forgotten about and go unanswered. So when you're reaching out to a professional contact and asking for an informational interview, there's a really high premium on capturing their attention right away. with email that starts with having a killer subject line, something that makes the reader want to open the email and respond. So this week's resource is a list of really good subject lines based on the relationship you have with that contact. The key here is to be strategic in how you use that subject line, depending on who you're writing to. It's not really a one-size-fits-all strategy. So, for example, when you're writing to someone who you were referred to by a mutual contact, you might want to name drop that person in the subject line, saying something like, I was referred by Mac Pritchard to discuss jobs in Portland. That way, the person's going to say, oh, I know Mac. I'll open this up and read that. Or if you're writing to someone in your desired industry who you don't know, and you might say something like, aspiring communications professional looking for advice from the best. Flattery always works. So this blog from the Muse has about a dozen different examples of subject lines you can use in different situations. They're all pretty good. I'd suggest you check it out. Again, it's from the Muse, and the blog post is called Here Are the Subject Lines That'll Get Your Networking Emails Opened Every Time. And as always, we'll have the URL in the show notes.
Great. Well, thank you, Ben. One I always react to is if somebody just says, so-and-so sent me, and I pay attention to the name and the subject line, and it's short, it's to the point, and it gets people's attention. Yeah. Well, good. Well, if you have a suggestion for Ben, please write him, and we may share your idea on the show. His address is ben@maxlist.org. Now let's turn to you, our listeners, and Becky joins us to answer one of your questions. So Becky, what's in that mailbag this week?
All right, so this week's question comes from listener Stephen Waldron in Salem, Massachusetts, and he sent it via email, so I'm going to read it out. So he says, from all the advice I've heard, it seems like having a great LinkedIn profile is important for job seekers. It's crucial to brand yourself as someone in the field you want to work in. But if you're looking to change careers, it could be awkward and detrimental to your current job if all of a sudden your public LinkedIn profile presents you as someone interested in a different field than you are currently in. Any advice on how to present yourself as invested in the field you are looking to move into without prematurely burning bridges where you currently get your paycheck? So this is a tricky one, Stephen. Thanks for sending it in. I think that's probably a common thing for sort of career changers and folks who are looking to enter new industries. And you're absolutely right. Your LinkedIn profile can help you land a new job. Definitely, if you've applied for a job, recruiters and those hiring managers are going to check out your LinkedIn if they're considering you. So one sort of piece of advice I would give is to use LinkedIn to sort of rebrand yourself slowly and sort of in phases. Don't recreate it, but just start to tweak it in sort of strategic ways. So some that I had found, and I came up with some ideas too. So the first thing I would do is to turn off your profile update notifications so colleagues won't see that you're changing things up. And then try adjusting your profile headline so that sort of main descriptor below your name that comes up when people search for you. Highlight your transferable skills there rather than just your current position in industry. People are getting really creative with these headlines, and you can use some keywords that will help show sort of what you're good at and what you want to be doing. Some folks will also list multiple interests within that headline. So this is a key for recruiters who are searching for specific keywords or certain types of professionals. That way you pop up within those industry searches without being totally out of the blue, sort of changing things up. And then in your sort of summary section on LinkedIn, you can highlight the work you're currently doing that reflects sort of best for your career target. So if you're needing to be really secretive, you can also use that summary section to describe your interest in this new field and what you've been learning, studying, working on to gear up for your career change. If that's okay to sort of focus on that, and your current employer won't be too weirded out. So it definitely depends on the situation. But I think that there's some sort of small things that you can start to do to still pop up and show that you're interested in that new field. Anyone else have thoughts?
No, that was all really excellent advice. So it's going to be, I don't have a lot to add to, but I would just reiterate the I'm really big in finding the threads of what's common and what the transferable skills type of a piece of advice of just it's likely not going to be as much of a huge pivot as you think it is, because even if it's a completely different industry, you'll still have some things that you've been doing in this new industry that can be highlighted, it can be slowly evolved, which
Yeah,
I
totally.
think that's all really great advice that you gave.
Thanks.
Insofar as we're talking about like hiding it from your employer, I think the number one is to make sure you turn off those profile change notifications. That way, when you make a change, it's not being alerted to your entire network. And I think the truth of the matter is, unless your boss is Mac Pritchard, it's pretty unlikely they're looking at your LinkedIn profile very often.
That's how I begin my day
Yeah.
at home. I check your profiles, each of you.
I can see when you're looking at my profile. So, yeah, I mean, there's always a risk there, but I think the rewards far outweigh the risk. And, I'd also say that most employers have some sense that their employees are going to move on at some point. You never want to burn the bridge. You never want to have one foot out the door already. But if your boss happens to see your LinkedIn profile looks a little bit different there, I don't think it's going to be like a world-breaking shock to them or anything. These things happen. People move around.
Yeah, and one thing, there are people who use LinkedIn every day. I may be the only one around the table.
I use it most days.
Yeah, I think I see you on there too,
Yeah.
Jessica. And I bring that up because for Stephen, it's he may already know this, but LinkedIn is a publishing platform, and so if you have a habit of visiting LinkedIn maybe 5 days a week or during the work week and sharing news about your company or your interests, and people aren't going to be surprised to see your page gradually change over time. Mm-hmm. And in a sense, it's another example of, Poe's purloined letter. You're just hiding in plain sight because people will be accustomed to seeing some activity on your page. I certainly can imagine if LinkedIn had been around in large public organizations where I worked in the 90s, where people, you had coworkers who paid careful attention to your calendar or other online documents. I can see where Stephen's concern is coming from. So one way to manage that is just be a regular contributor to LinkedIn, whether you're sharing news about your employer or things that are of interest to your people in your field. And then nobody updates their LinkedIn profile overnight. It usually takes some weeks or even a few months. And if you combine that with online publishing, probably most people won't notice.
Yeah, and I would actually also add that, if there's opportunities, I don't know, obviously, what organization you work for or what your employer relationship is, but if there are opportunities to be able to have conversations during your reviews or things like that, if your employer is receptive to contributing to some professional development, those types of things, if you have conversations with your current employer about your goals for the future, they may actually be really receptive to helping you meet those goals and being able to point you into, like I said, professional development opportunities that utilize the existing skills and role that you're in now, but then to set you up for the career change that you're looking to move into. So, I don't necessarily think that you have to have this sort of stealth, covert operation of keeping it super secret, unless, again, I don't know your employer relationship, but I think that there's always opportunities to be able to talk about that with your employer or with your network, maybe in informational interviews or something, to tie it all back. But yeah, keep talking about that, and good luck with that, Stephen.
Yeah,
Thanks.
he's on the right track for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, thank you, Becky, and thank you, Stephen. If you have a question for Becky, please send her an email. Her address is becky@maxlist.org. You can also call our listener line, area code 716-JOB-TALK, or tweet at us. Our Twitter handle is @MaxList. That's MACS_LIST. If we use your question on the show, we'll send you a copy of Land Your Dream Job Anywhere. We're dropping Stephen's copy in the mail this week. So we'll be back in a moment, and when we return, I'll talk with this week's guest expert, Kate Gremillion, about how to use your network to get informational interviews. Most people struggle with job hunting. The reason is simple. Most of us learn the nuts and bolts of looking for work by trial and error. That's why I produce this podcast, to help you master the skills you need to find a great job. It's also why I wrote my new book, Land Your Dream Job Anywhere. For 15 years at MaxList, I've helped people in Portland, Oregon find meaningful, well-paying, and rewarding jobs that they love. Now, I put all of my job hunting secrets in one book that can help you no matter where you live. You'll learn how to get clear about your career goals, find hidden jobs that never get posted, and ace your next job interview. For more information and to download the first chapter for free, visit maxlist.org/anywhere. Now let's turn to this week's guest expert, Kate Gremillion. Kate Gremillion is the founder and CEO of Mavenly & Company. Her firm offers group workshops, corporate training courses, and coaching programs. And these services give young women the tools, resources, and mindset they need to create careers and lifestyles with purpose. Kate also hosts the weekly podcast, Women, Work, and Worth, and her advice has been featured in publications like Forbes, Fortune, Business Insider, and Her Agenda. She joins us today from New Orleans. Kate, thanks for being on the show.
Mac, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. Now, our topic this week, Kate, as you know, is using our networks to get informational interviews. Kate, why do some people struggle with this? I often, when I talk to job seekers about the value of informational interviews, they say, well, gosh, I just don't know anyone to reach out to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people struggle with this because we really see the job hunt or, the job application process as something that happens in a really formal way. So we go on job boards and we apply for jobs, or we go to LinkedIn and we message someone at the company we're interested in. And so I think people really struggle because this is kind of a new way of approaching networking and informational interviews and getting jobs that I think we're not used to. But if I do say so myself, it is by far the best and most beneficial way. I think as humans, we're natural relators and we want to have conversations about the things we'll be doing every day and learn information about something before we commit to doing it for a job full time. So I think informational interviews are tough to come by because they're new and it's a different way of looking at networking and it's a different way of interviewing for jobs. But I think genuine interest is the best way to approach anything. And I think that's why it's the most valuable. So I think people struggle because it's not the norm, it's not typical, but the people that do it are the people that win in the space for sure.
Well, what kinds of questions should job seekers ask themselves to find the right people for informational interviews, Kate?
Yeah, great question. So I like to put networks in two categories. So you have your strong ties and your weak ties. So your strong ties are people that you've probably reached out to already if you've networked. These are people that you immediately think of as business connections. These are people that you either worked with, you went to school with, they were professors, they were bosses. So those are your strong ties. You know those people pretty well. I think what people are missing out on when they're thinking about informational interviews are their weak ties. So the people that you're connected to in a strong way, they're also connected to people that by nature of being connected to your strong tie, you are also connected to. So I think when we're thinking about informational interviews, we need to think about our weak ties, or people that are maybe 2 degrees, 3 degrees separated from us, or that we maybe traditionally wouldn't think of as a professional connection. I know every single one of the jobs I got before I started Mavenly was through someone that I would have never said was a professional connection. They were maybe a family friend, or they were a friend of someone I worked with. And one of them was even a friend of my boyfriend's at the time. So if I would have limited myself to only my strong professional networks, then I would have missed out on these work opportunities and not had informational interviews or conversations with people that were what I call weak ties, or people that I traditionally wouldn't think of as in my professional network.
Why can people who are what you're describing as weak ties, who maybe are 2 or 3 degrees removed from us, why can they be so valuable in a job search? That almost seems counterintuitive. I can imagine listeners saying, well, gosh, somebody who doesn't know me, why would they want to help me? And why would they even make time to see me?
Yeah, great question. I do think that it's our human nature to want to help people. You'll be surprised at how many people you reach out to actually genuinely want to help. It feels good to help other people. That's why philanthropy exists. So I do think weak ties, if you reach out, there's probably at least, a 50-50 chance that they will say yes and they'll want to meet with you. The reason weak ties are so valuable is because if you've already had a job or if you've already been looking for a job, you've probably tapped out your strong ties. So you probably know the opportunities available to you in your strong ties. So I actually have a client that I'm working with who wants to work in the entertainment industry in California, but she lives in Louisiana. So in order to work with people in California, when she's only lived in Louisiana, she's going to have to tap into some weak ties. So maybe one of her friends has a roommate that previously lived with her in Louisiana, but now lives in California. There's people that are around you that you feel comfortable with that are in your strong professional group, but they don't have the connections you need to make the real career advancements that you want to make. So what I say is sometimes it's not who you know, but it's who they know. And so looking at LinkedIn, this is how I use LinkedIn, but what I'll do is I'll find my strong network and then who are they connected to? Those people are my weak ties, and there might be an introduction to be made via that strong tie, but it's someone that's going to be better suited to give me the information I need and that actually has the connection that I want to make. Maybe my strong ties don't have the connections to the career I actually want. And instead of saying, okay, well, I'll just settle for the career that my strong ties can connect me to, really push yourself to reach out to those weak ties because that's where the real opportunities can be, kind of outside of your comfort zone or outside of the current network you have, because the network you had, of course, for anyone is limited.
So that's the theory, and I love what you're saying. Let's talk about practical first steps. Who you're ready to take the plunge and approach people in your network. Who are the best first people to approach, Kate?
Yeah, great question. So what I'll typically do if I'm looking to approach some weak ties, and maybe I don't even know who those weak ties are, I start with my strong ties. And the question I ask them is, knowing my interests and knowing what I want to be doing in my career, who would you suggest I speak with? Who would you suggest I talk to? Because people previously, if they don't know that you're looking for a job or job hunting or wanting to talk to other people, they're not going to naturally suggest other people. So what I recommend is asking your strong ties, asking the people you're already connected to that you've had these conversations with, say, knowing what you know about me, who should I talk to next? This is the best way to continue to expand your network and to reach out to some of those weak ties, because naturally that person will start going through their Rolodex and saying, okay, wait, maybe I can connect her to this person and this other person based on the interest she has. And then the great thing is you can continue to ask that conversation of these weak ties so you can get continued connections and network feedback by asking this simple question. And then the great thing is that person can either offer an introduction and offer to introduce you, but sometimes what I'll do if that person's time is really limited or I know they're very busy is say, I'm happy to write the introduction for you. All you'll have to do is copy and paste and introduce me to that quote unquote weak tie. So what I'll say is, okay, an email afterwards to that strong connection saying, thank you so much. I would love to be connected to John Smith. Here's a sample email you can draft to John Smith about me that might, make a stronger introduction. Not only are you taking the pressure off that person to write something wonderful about you, but you can actually write something wonderful about yourself exactly the way you want to write it. Nothing is worse than being introduced to someone in a way that isn't flattering to you. And so when you're in control of that, when you write that message, you're taking pressure off that person to write it, and you have total control over how you'll be introduced to that connection.
Okay, I love the fact, two things here. One, that you use the word Rolodex as somebody's 58. I don't hear that much anymore, and sometimes if I by mistake mention it, people get this sort of glazed look over their eyes.
The millennials are all confused right now.
Yeah. The second thing, though, is I love the fact that you're getting into the how to do this. And I want to back up a little bit, Kate, and talk a little more about the who, which is I can imagine people saying, okay, I need to start with my strong ties. I might look on LinkedIn. Let's just take people through how they might build the list of the first 5 or 10 contacts they reach out to for an informational interview. What's your quick and best advice about how to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I tell people first, what I would think introspectively is, what type of opportunities am I looking for? Mac, do you feel that your listeners, they have an understanding of the type of job they're already looking for, or they're looking to just get information about what they might even be looking for?
I think people fall into two groups, and it is a great question. One, people know where they want to go, or they have an interest in a company or nonprofit or other organization. And then I think the second group are people who aren't sure what they want to do next, but they've got 2 or 3 ideas that they want to explore. So they either have a short list of dream companies or nonprofits, or they think I'm interested in this and this and this, but I'm not quite sure how to get started.
Yeah. Absolutely. So if you are in the group where you know maybe what companies you want to be working for and you're looking for informational interviews, that is a time where I would look on LinkedIn, and the first people I would connect with are people that are connected to those people that either work at that company or have some influence at that company. So when you're making that list, see who is connected to someone that works there. The easy way to do that on LinkedIn is to search the company name, and it'll tell you who your connections are or second degree connections that work there. But for someone who is maybe interested in a field but wants to get more information on it, I think that social networks or actual real networks, I think it's so funny how we limit ourselves to social networks, but we're going to parties and class and things every day where we can genuinely connect with people. So I think what I would do in that case is just talk to the people around me and let people know what you're interested in and what you enjoy and what you're looking for. And it'll be so astonishing to you how much people are willing to suggest connections to you. So I think when you're making that short list, the first thing to do if you have no idea where to start is to tell the people around you, maybe it's your mom, your dad, your roommate, your sibling, tell them what you're looking for and ask who you should be connected to. There are people that the people around us know that we don't even know that we should be connected to. So I would start with people super close to you, the people you see every day. No one is off limits. Everyone you come into contact with is in your network. And the more people that know what you're looking for, the better you'll be at crafting that list and actually chatting with people about who you should be speaking with. So I think the natural first step, if you don't know where to start, is anyone you come in contact with today for the rest of the day, tell them what you're looking for and ask if they know someone who can connect you to that type of field or industry.
So it's great advice. And once you build that list, and you already started to talk about this, what is the best way, once you have that short list of 5 or 10 people, to begin to reach out? You have the meeting, and you're going to ask for introductions to others. What's the best way to get the meeting, Kate, and then to follow up afterwards?
Yeah, I think the most important thing that people oftentimes, overlook or don't focus on when they're reaching out to someone is making the connection about how you're connected to that person and then why you're reaching out. My least favorite thing is when I see people emailing and saying, hey, just wanted to grab coffee, or hey, just want to pick your brain. That is the worst way to email someone about one of these opportunities, because if it's someone you want to be connecting with, they're probably busy. They probably have a lot on their plate, and they want to know that their time is being spent wisely. So what I recommend is saying, first, how you're connected. So I'm Sally Sue's friend. I also worked at this company. I'm an alumnus of the same university. So they have some point of reference for how to put you in their network, and then say exactly what you're looking for. I'm looking to get more information about this type of career path, and I'd like to ask you questions about the application process. Then that person can come prepared to that informational interview, and they also know that their time is being valued and it's not going to be wasted because you know exactly the questions you want to ask. I think it can be really frustrating for people to have others in their network reach out to them and ask to grab coffee, and then you sit down and you ask how you can help them or what type of things they would like to talk about, and they have no idea. So I really recommend making sure you let people know why you're connecting with them up front. And then if you can, obviously sitting down in person is great, but offering to do it on their terms. So if a call is best, if, a walk around the park is best, if coffee is best, letting them pick the preferences for how they want to connect, I think is also really important. And then staying in that same vein, knowing what you would say if that person asked, how can I help you, is incredibly important. So it's also frustrating when that person takes the time to help you, they ask how they can help you, and then you have no way to do that. So before you go into an informational interview, have a list of 3 to 5 things for next steps for ideally how that conversation or interaction would go. Because I think the way people feel most valued in their network is when people follow up on that interaction or have something that person can do for them that they're able to act on within 24 hours.
I love your emphasis on walking into the meeting with a specific request or ask that you have for the person you're meeting with, because my experience has been that people, and you said this at the beginning, Kate, people do want to help others. And the easier we can make it for people to help us when we're doing informational interviews, the more likely they are to say yes, and the happier they're going to feel about the meeting.
Absolutely, no question. And I think the mentors and the mentees that have the best relationships are when the mentors are able to see that the mentee is really taking their advice to heart and is really acting on the advice they gave them, because they know, like I said, it's valued. Their information and their time and their contribution is valued. And ultimately, that's what we all want to feel, is that our time and our efforts are valued.
Okay. Any other mistakes you see people make in asking for informational interviews or identifying people for these meetings that you'd like to share?
Absolutely. I think the biggest mistake anyone makes in conversation is speaking before they listen. So find out, if you're sitting down with someone, find out what their passion points are. Find out what they're interested in. Find out what they would like to talk about, because ultimately, and Maya Angelou said it best, people aren't going to remember what you said or what you did, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And people's favorite topic is themselves. So for the first 10, 15 minutes of any informational interview, ask people questions about themselves. Get to know that person, because you might spend the whole time rambling about yourself and your goals, and all they're thinking is, man, not only do I not have advice on this particular thing, or, they have a misunderstanding about what I do, but they're not even taking the time to think about how I might be able to truly help them, or what my strengths are, my skills are. So I think the best advice, and something that many people overlook, is that they want to speak and share because they called for, the meeting or the conversation or the interview. They feel they need to, lay all their cards on the table up front. But I really advise people to ask questions, take an interest in the other person before you start talking or before you start asking for things, because ultimately you'll get more information that way. And after all, this is an informational interview. So you're there to learn and to gain insight. And so I think a really important thing to keep in mind is that you should always be listening before you're sharing, because then you can inform your own answers, and then you actually gain more knowledge, and that person walks away thinking that you truly cared about what they were able to offer in that conversation.
Great. Well, great advice, Kate. Now tell us, what's coming up next for you?
Yeah, great question. So we just rolled out a program. It's called Crafting Your Career. And an element of that is informational interviews. But basically what we do is, in a 6-week process, we work with individuals to make sure that they're able to create the career that they truly love. So it's an individualized program. It's 6 weeks. We do it either via Skype or Google Hangout, or if we happen to be in the same city, we do it in person. But we walk through your ideal career path with you and how to make it tangible, how to actually make it real. So that's the next thing on the horizon for us. And hopefully, if you're interested, you'll check it out.
Well, we'll be sure to include a link to that course in the show notes. And I know people can also find you on the web at www.mavenlee.co. And I also encourage people to check out your podcast. I know you publish every week. It's Women, Work, and Worth. And it's a great show. I've listened to it a number of times. You're doing great stuff there.
Awesome. Thank you, Mac. Same
right.
with you as well. We love your content.
Well, great. Well, thank you, Kate. And take care.
Thank you so much.
All right. We're back in the MaxList studio with the team here. Becky, Jessica, Ben, what were your thoughts about my conversation with Kate?
Well, I thought it was an excellent conversation. She had a lot of really great points that I enjoyed several of them, but I liked her last point was, I think, the most resonated the most with me, and I think kind of the biggest takeaway to remember and to reiterate of the listening as much as you share, or maybe even more than you share. I think we all are in a zone of where we think that adding value is by speaking and by contributing, but oftentimes you get a lot more from listening. And I know we've talked about this a lot of times, that informational interviews are a really great way to build relationships, not only to gain information about the industry that you want to work in, or if it's the right fit for you, or how to break into that industry, which all of those are important things to get from the informational interviews. But it's also really important to not have it be transactional, and not have it be I'm here for this, and what can you give to me to be able to get what I need, but to build that relationship and have it be sort of a more of a two-way street and an equal reciprocal relationship that can last for a long time and can be really beneficial for both parties for a long time. And I really liked her points about, having actual conversations and learning about the person that you are speaking with, about what their interests are as well, to be able to have those more authentic and heartfelt conversations that can turn into longer lasting, really nice relationships. So I think that's really important.
Great. Yeah, there's so much we can learn from others, and you're right about starting relationships that can, if you stay in that field or that profession, can continue for decades. Mm-hmm. Becky, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with what Jessica was saying too, and I think that while you want to be super curious with the person that you're interviewing, like, you also need to be like succinct about yourself and sort of clear about your goal, and I think that Kate mentioned that as well. I really like the tactic that she shared earlier in your discussion about LinkedIn and searching for maybe those second degree folks that you have a strong first degree connection, like connecting the two of you, and even writing email content for your first degree connection to do that email introduction. Those email introductions are always great. I think that there's usually like a great sort of return on those in my experience. Like, if you have a mutual friend, they're much more likely to respond. So I think that's a great sort of tactic to go above and beyond and make it really easy for your existing network to connect you with others.
Yeah, I think those personal introductions always matter. And sometimes if you can't get people to do them because they're so busy or have such a senior position, just being able to ask if you can use their name
drop and do that.
Yeah,
blank sent me. Yeah,
that can be helpful too. Ben?
And I think, you just can never overestimate the power of weak connections that we have with people. And so many times when I talk to job seekers, they say like, well, I just don't know anyone, right? Or I've talked to everyone I know already. And we're talking there about the first connections or the strong connections that we have. But when you think about networking as about building out that network, every meeting isn't an end in and of itself. It's like a step to the next piece of like, who else can I talk to? Like, so when you start reaching out to those weak connections, they themselves might not have a whole lot of things that they can tell you about your specific career journey, but it's like who they know. That's the important thing. And so like constantly going after those weak connections to just keep building out from there. Because the truth is, like, we really don't know much about what other people do for a living. Like, I couldn't tell you what my uncle does for a living. Like, I have a vague sense that he's in sales, but I don't, know what he sells or who he knows. And, so reaching out to people like that, and, you could find out a whole lot of good leads from that conversation right there. And if you play that out over all the people you've ever met at a party or pass on the street or have, are in a bowling league with, that's a huge number of people and a huge amount of opportunities that are there right in front of you.
Yeah, somehow we've gotten through a 30-minute plus show without talking about connections and degrees without mentioning Kevin Bacon.
Missed opportunity. Yeah.
But your point is spot on, Ben. And what I loved about Kate's content, and she had a lot of good ideas, but But what really stood out for me was when she said, talk to your family and friends first. That's where you begin. And because they will know people and that you will just never occur to reach out to. And it works the same in politics, too. I had before starting this company and Pritchard Communications, a life in electoral politics. And every campaign, whether it's a big statewide race or a small school board contest, begins with the candidate and her family and friends around a kitchen table. And it grows from there. And the people who are really good at tapping their networks, they can be just somebody running for a school board, are typically the people who win. But start with the people who know you best.
Absolutely.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all, and thank you, Kate, for joining us. And thank you all, our listeners, for downloading today's episode of Find Your Dream Job. If you like what you hear, please sign up for our free weekly newsletter. In every issue, we give you the key points of that week's show, and we also include links to all the resources mentioned, and you get a transcript of the full episode. If you subscribe to the newsletter now, we'll send you our new guide, the Top Career Podcasts of 2017. Discover all the podcasts that can help you find a great job and build the career you want. Get your free newsletter and career podcast guide today. Go to maxlist.org/podcast. And join us next Wednesday when our special guest will be Jackie Barrett Poindexter. She'll tell us what's hot and what's not in resumes. Until next time, thanks for letting us help you find your dream job.